few minutes late.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the August 1st meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Please take note of the exits around the room, and we thank you for joining us at our new time at 6 p.m. Now join me as we salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for Real Ole Football Club Soccer. I hope I said that correctly. We've workshopped this as well as had a couple of offline meetings. The applicants are seeking a site plan amendment to convert what has been a golf driving range into a series of soccer fields. These would be used for both practice and occasional tournaments. The tournaments would be done as well as the practices by different teams. The teams are bracketed by ages. The actual use of the site would only be during the spring, summer, and fall months. Over winter, you would not have activities. At this point, the applicants are not seeking to do anything other than basically change the nature of the turf that's there right now. Come on up, and I'll turn it over to you guys to present. Oh, make a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. Is this close enough?
Yes.
Okay. Nicole Patty from the LRC Group. And as you had mentioned, the project is just to amend the site plan and special use permit for the Gilbert Farm Recreation Center to transform the existing driving range into a premier soccer academy and training facility within the recreation center. The facility would utilize the grass area within the existing pole-mounted netting and create multiple fields for practices and games.
Or for the older like me, Carol Merrill.
Oh, gee.
Don't check the new banner. When I use that same expression,
Right.
Yes. The project will require some regrading and resurfacing of the grass area to meet the standards of a premier grass field surface. But overall, the application is proposing minor changes to the site to make the transformation from the driving range to multiple soccer fields.
And you plan to utilize the buildings that are there? There's no change to the structures? There's no change to anything else?
No.
At the last meeting, Mr. Morrison presented a sort of refined analysis of potential traffic impacts. If everyone had a chance to review that, because he handed it out at the meeting, it appears as though there's just a small increase in traffic because of the nature of the timing of the tournaments that would be there. And you relied on ITE manual, which is that's the industry standard.
Yes, that's correct.
But as you said, sometimes that's hard because it's really apples to oranges in many cases, because you're looking at soccer fields that are much bigger than this with bleachers, et cetera, et cetera. So
Right.
I myself think that the traffic numbers looked adequate. We'll hear from the consultants shortly, as well as my fellow board members. We sent out the comments that we had from the agenda meeting, both Mr. Sotero's and mine. We sent out to Mr. Morrison, who I believe sent out a reply today at 4:30.
Yep.
And you have everything with highlights? Yes, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
They were all minor comments for the most part, per se. One of them was, though, to define the playground and recreation area. And you said that you'll have tear sheets from any benches or anything else that will be shown?
Yes, we, just for example, simple example, we brought some color copies tonight of something that's representative. Of course, the final version would go to Tad and through the normal
I'm going to
process.
guess that this is something like playground equipment for like the brothers and sisters of the, I figured, okay.
Yeah,
guess just
right,
got
just very
printed out.
simple benches. Simple
Thank you.
Takes like a woman.
Nice.
Is
Nice.
this for all of us, Rod? or-
It is, that's for the board, for anybody to see. Again, very simple, nothing complex. It's just to provide a little bit of relief and relaxation for those who would be there who maybe aren't participating in soccer.
Thank you very much. We'll keep some for the copy. Let me start to the left. Comments from our consultants. Ms. Axelson, anything new? Thank you. Mr. Sotero?
No, I did take a look at the traffic numbers, and they do appear, reasonable. As you said, there will be a slight increase once the fields are fully, developed. But again, because of the offsets and times and, the peak hours, it shouldn't be an issue. I'm just briefly reading what Rod sent through late today. So the only, I mean, really the only other one that I was a little concerned about was about the irrigation well, and again, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to go read this quick, but we'll have to go look at it, but that was really the only, you know, potential concern depending on how close some of the neighboring, you know, wells are. But I see here there's, Rod talked to the health department. Well, Rod, you know, why don't you
Yeah,
say it?
sure. No, we did.
What am I trying to read this for when you talk to him? So go ahead.
It's working great by me.
No.
Yeah, we did. We spoke to the health department. They indicated to us that there isn't a permit, a review, a design permit from them, but the well driller submits a permit for a non-potable well, for an irrigation well. It has to be labeled as such, so it has those requirements. I mean, the existing public well, the water well on site, has pretty good yield. We don't anticipate, because of the nature of what the well is, drilling a deep well, we don't anticipate looking for any huge yield at all, nothing beyond, say, a residential house yield. And we also know, Patrick might not, but we also know we'll have to have a storage tank just to buffer, you know, the use of that irrigation out there when it's necessary. So I don't have any problem continuing to work, you know, here, so that if you want to see well logs, if you want to be a part of that, of course.
No, it's not that. It was just more about the proximity of some of the adjacent wells.
Yeah, we're over, I don't know, Idlewild, and Ken can point to it, because we were looking at it earlier today, where his hand is, that we have a line on this drawing showing it's over 600 feet to the property line, or to?
So it's 620 feet to the property line.
Yeah.
For Idlewild, which was consistent with the original neg deck location for an irrigation well. And we have 613 to the corner of the property to Hidden Brook, and about 1,024 to the nearest residence. And then to the back, it's over 910.
Well, Hidden Brook is now, they're tied into the county water and wastewater authority line, so
Okay.
they're good.
Yeah.
So, and I think we did notice this at our agenda meeting, but that there was an irrigation well that was proposed as part of the golf. The golf
Yeah, honestly,
facility.
Victoria pointed it out. I hadn't read that deep into the old neg deck in a long time. But it was listed and described in there. It was discussed
Okay.
as something similar to a residential
Okay.
yield well. But again, I think the build-out of that would be the well. It would need a storage tank.
Yeah.
If they're, you know, in a drought condition, there would be water being pulled from the well. The grass out there is utterly, amazingly lush at this point in time. I don't know is somebody taking, it's magically getting taken care of? Yeah, no, it is unbelievable. I mean, even just looking at, the grass itself needs to be changed, the nature of the grass, so it's a plain grass, but to the eye, it's literally perfectly graded, and it's perfectly green. And I know that we're discussing, say, a period of drought, but we'll have to manage that at the time with the storage of water. So I'm really thinking that a lot of time past the initial establishment of this better grass, that you'll probably be in pretty good shape.
All right. So you'll formalize, you know, the email and
Yeah,
a letter
absolutely.
or
We were
something.
just trying to get
that's good.
some of this back to you so you could consider it before we got here.
And Rod, did you show on the site plan, I don't think I've seen it, where the tank would be?
The tank would be right near where the well is. What we showed is a pump house. And did we mention a storage tank? So we'll revise that.
I'm just
right in
thinking
the same
about for
spot.
Tad, just,
Yeah.
Is it above ground, below ground, above ground?
it'll be above ground, I think, right?
We haven't considered it. It would be nice if it's sitting above ground, of course, yeah. Sitting on a pad, depending on the size of the tank.
Okay. So we need details.
Sure, we can author a design for that, yep.
Anything else, Mr. Sotero?
No.
Ms. Polidoro?
So I was trying to read your letter when you started talking. They refer to plans that you've revised. Are those on their way?
Yes, we finished them like an hour ago.
Oh, okay, okay. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss them.
Yeah. No, that's technically correct. They had been revised. They're just all sitting in our office.
Okay, they just hadn't been.
Yeah, the revision, when we just take a step back in Pete's comments and the chairman's comments about the phase numbering, we just revised that. We created a table of what is in each, and we made it phase A, B, C, and D, all a part of phase A. The initial, of course, as we've discussed, the initial interest and pressure is to be able to go in and fix that front area where the old tee boxes were so Patrick can get up and moving. That area is a part of the erosion sediment control permit, but all of Phase A is part of site plan approval. So anything beyond what's inside of those nets is subject to future site plan review and consideration.
Okay, yeah, the phasing was my biggest concern, so that's been fixed. I look forward to looking at it.
Yes, we hope it's fixed. Yep.
I'll
And it was
just-
really a labeling. It was how we were labeling and describing it, right? So it was just,
Well, labeled, described, and, you know, the full build-out includes 2 really large buildings, and right now there's no uses proposed, so.
correct. Yep,
Right, we just wanted to make sure that you would be coming back.
absolutely.
Before
Yeah,
the-
yeah, that's absolutely correct. The only area we are literally focused on are the fields.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll add, just before I ask for comments from the board, Tad discovered that in 2014, I believe as part of the airsoft approval, the wetlands were in the general vicinity were actually reflagged. So that's been done within a period of 5 years, so that's kind of off the table now. The other notes I mentioned were the traffic, which we've all discussed, or at least 2 of us have discussed so far. The rest were mostly about the phasing because it seemed confusing, the playground and seating, which we've now seen. We wanted it noted, I believe you now have it, that the airsoft approval, so that it expired because it never happened.
We had placed that note on the revised plan.
That's what I thought. And then the only other point we had was the irrigation well, because we were really curious as to who approved that, how it was done. So I understand now that,
Yeah, Jason Teed gave us an email back, and we can pass it on to you if you like.
but once you apply and you get your permit, then it's up to the owner to manage it, et cetera, because they don't really have a concern because it's not for
It's not
drinking.
potable, right?
Yep.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, great.
You know, I did have another question. In the house when it was a golf facility, when you first walked in and you rented the balls, is there a bathroom in that facility?
There is.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
Yep.
we were
I
having,
couldn't remember.
okay.
Yep, and a line was run from the current water system to that bathroom.
Okay,
So
but
we-
that bathroom's only gonna be for employees, and then you're gonna have the porta potties?
Yes,
for
that's
the-
correct. Yep.
Thank you. Comments from my left, Ms. Weiser?
Nothing to add?
Mr. Pickett?
No comment.
Ms. Dexter?
In your initial applications, you had a long list of waivers that you were requesting. One of them that I noted that I was, and I see it kind of popped up here, it was it was like the second to last one, where you had asked for things like seating and benches and stuff like that. I think we still want to know where like where the playground's going to be, where, right? I mean, we usually ask for locations for benches and things like that, because they are
And what we do is.
Picnic
if I can-
tables,
yeah,
what, you
If I can
know.
pop in on this, if you can just show a general footprint area, so that
Yes.
Ms. Moss
Yeah.
doesn't say,
Yes.
oh, this is not 30
It's off by
feet from
3,
the.
yeah, it's off by 3 feet.
Right, and I think we're to the point now where we can place those like that. In the beginning, we were trying to work with Patrick, and I'd like to give him a chance to just announce himself to the public here and tell them who he is. We were trying to figure out where the little field would go, where the big field would go.
Mhm.
So we're pretty plugged in now.
I figured it was
we can
early
put
on when you
placemakers on that.
had
Yeah,
asked for
that's no
that, but I
problem
think
for
at
us.
this point,
Yeah.
I just wanted to speak up and say, I personally would like to see.
Yeah, we can add those to the
General locations
soon-to-be
marked.
revised plans, and we can get those to you guys
Great.
right away.
Pass the microphone over.
Hello. I'm Patrick Alvarez for the public. I'm a former professional soccer player, now turned coach. On that note of, it's pretty much, we're going to give you obviously a picture of what it's going to look like, but where the mini golf is, it already has seating and picnic tables from the previous, so it's going to pretty much be in that layout, just rearranged and somewhere for the kids that are not participating, and with the parents, they could sit down, read a book, answer emails, and watch their kids at the playground while their kids are getting training. So it's going to be pretty much where that mini golf is, just rearranged a little bit and minimized. Overall, it's just going to be a place where Hyde Park can really promote and have high-end soccer training, and where a system and curriculum and also players with great discipline can get produced out of this area, and promote Hyde Park not only at a high-end level, also a fundamental level. So I'm looking forward to creating a youth program here and becoming a future resident, which would
How
be cool.
will people find you?
In sense of signage and all that?
No, I mean, to find you as a,
To hire you.
as a coach.
We do
as
have a website, realolefc.com. We can find us on all social media platforms. We have Instagram, Facebook page, and crickets too. You're good. And so, yeah, you can find us on all, social media platforms. We do post videos and of my training sessions on Instagram so other coaches and trainers can learn from me, as well as, promote the area of Hyde Park and our players. And, we're building relationships with New York City FC. I have a good relationship with them to produce players out of our area to get them to higher levels.
Oh, okay. So
and
there's
play
like a whole
professionally.
network. There's
Yes,
that's
yes.
very,
So
that's very awesome.
I've been training kids from Long Island to New York City, Westchester, and I put 60,000 miles on my truck in 1 year. So I'm traveling all over the area training a lot of kids and a lot of college athletes and also professional athletes. And I currently still play. So, and so our plan is to be a gateway from travel amateur level, more in that middle gateway of getting to college looks, showcases, and playing professionally. And also I have a lot of relationships with my former club in Spain that I'm bringing 3 of our players overseas to try out. So my goal is not to keep them. My goal is to coach them, give them everything I had as a player, and push them to the next level and continue to grow, whether or not they become professional athletes or D1, D2, scholarships, wherever they land is based on them. But it's my job to keep them moving from us and getting better.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Nope.
Mr. Oliver?
Well, just thank you for looking at Hyde Park for a place of your business and looking at a site that, is almost perfect for what you're going to do, and it's a great, reuse of it. So thank you very much.
Ms. Napoli?
I almost didn't recognize you without your orange T-shirt. I have to admit, I sort of miss it.
I told you I'd come dressed up just as good as everybody here. I had to one-up you guys a little bit. You guys look too good.
When you were talking about dealing with up to college age, would that include the local colleges in this area? Do they have soccer?
Right, so there's Marist, which is Rob Esposito is a good friend of mine. He's the assistant coach. Matt Vigiani is the head coach at Marist. So we basically have open channels where we say, hey, we have some players that you should look at. And Vassar College, Ross is assistant coach there, and Chuck Wilder. These are all great people that the soccer community is very connected. And this is where we present our players to them and give them a head look or a shortcut. Say, listen, we have players from our own area that, I went through the system and I was overlooked because I was from New York. I was almost better off saying I was from Spain or something where my family or my dad was born, because politically they want something to sell. And we're not known for soccer at this moment. We're known for more American sports. And I think our players get overlooked because of that. So all these colleges are actually bringing players from the UK and other countries when we have talent here. And they're getting overlooked because of our development program, which is...
But you hope to change that.
I'm part of that cause. I'm part of that. I look at certain local clubs, and when I see a guy with a baseball hat and basketball shorts on teaching soccer, you don't see me in a chem lab with the chemist trying to tell them how to do chemistry. It's just, it's a very specific trade. I don't teach something I don't know. This is everything I do know. So it's, for me, it's something I'm very particular in. And the biggest thing is that the parents and the kids believe in me. They look up to me, which is amazing. I take them to soccer games. They're always traveling with me when I play. It's more than just soccer. It really is. It's molding them into great young adults, which I think is more important than the sports base, because, a lot of these kids have too much time on their hands. When they have too much time, they start getting into wrong things. So for me, it's about them becoming better people than better soccer players.
Thank you. And thank you also for coming to Hyde Park.
You speak as eloquently as you did last time. I so admire your passion with your involvement with young people at this crucial stage, basically. And it's funny to hear someone as young as you say, "these kids."
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
I feel more like grandpa than ever before here. So, if you guys will make way, we have a couple of people who've signed up for public to speak. The first would be George Beck of 12 Idlewild Drive. If you didn't sign up, you can still speak. Anyone can still speak.
Good afternoon. I'm a fairly new resident of Hyde Park. My wife and I fell in love with a former foreclosure over on Idlewild Drive. If I'm not mistaken, from the map there, I'm the blue square, the second one from the end of the house.
Go to the colored one. Go to the colored one.
Yeah, the colored one. I believe it's the blue square. Yeah, that one there. That's us. So we're fairly close to the former driving range and now the former proposed soccer training center. I had a couple of general questions. First of all, not to put a downer on things, this is a regular for-profit business. There's going to pay tax on the full property. There's no 10-year free
Yes.
taxes, or
Yes.
we'll pay taxes
And
on
if
5
you-
acres. You get the rest of the 72 with the wetlands.
You can direct your questions toward the board rather
Okay.
than the applicant.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'll
no,
pick one
no.
of these,
It's
so.
okay, it's okay. That's why I'm telling you, or requesting it of you. We try to provide the answers. If we can't, then I'll ask the applicants to do so.
Understood.
In this case, when this was first proposed as the golf driving range, there were it was flooding along your drive. There were property issues. So as part of the site plan application, we had them put in I don't think I can see it from here. Thank you, yes. So there's a stormwater detention pond, and that stopped the flooding from this area. To answer your question about, this is a for-profit and they will pay taxes, but the way the assessment's done, I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, vacant land is not assessed as the same as where your improvements are. So in other words, there's a base for land, and then whatever the improvements are, that gets adjusted into it. So there's not a lot of physical improvements being made at this time, so I'm not the assessor, I'd suspect the taxes would stay the same because
Gotcha.
he's
So
just
there's no
regrading.
reduction from what the previous tenant
Yeah.
had. Okay, that's what I wanted to know on that. And is there any, I see a couple adult fields, will there be bleachers for fans, or what's the expected rough attendance for the games? Like how much noise will there be, because we're fairly close to the.
So, in terms of bleachers, there's not any proposed now. We've talked to Mr. Alvarez about sort of his future plans, but they're way in the future because he's young and it's a growing business, you can imagine. He'd like to have bleachers at some point. We've actually already kind of identified where we think the ideal location would be, but all of this would always require site plan amendment, so there'd be public comment, public participation, and all of these. As to noise, it's hard for us to assess that because it's really going to be used primarily on weekends, and that's during the day. And the nature of the number of teams is there could be anywhere from about 90 kids at one time or less, all occurring around the same time because you have different age groups and then the next age group and the next age group. So there'll be some kids who'll be there, or young people who'll be there waiting for the next round, the next tournament to begin, et cetera. However, we noted as well before when we were looking at the possible sound impacts on this too, we have to always up here weigh that this could also be single-family homes that would produce similar sounds to this. In addition, this site is surrounded by, or not surrounded by, but it's bordered by 2 schools, Haviland Middle School and the elementary school, both of which produce kids running around and playing during the day. So it'd be your kind of standard sounds, but there's not going to be any PA announcements, speakers. There's nothing like that involved. It's really more, from what I understand, it's just a place to go and play. So you're going to hear the sounds of kids running around, et cetera, but that's about it.
And it's going to be, you said mostly during the day, so there won't be any provision for like sleepover camp or.
No.
Type of facility.
No.
Haven't had a lot of chance
No.
to review it, so I figured I better.
Yeah,
ask
no.
before,
Those are good questions.
Fair enough.
No, if he had sleepover, he'd have to have a lot more water, I would think, et cetera, and more than just a porta potty. But no, there's no plans for that. They would basically, as I understand it and what we've been told, parents will bring their children, and they typically carpool. So, I'll bring Sally's son and Billy's daughter or whatever at the same time. It's because they'll rotate off. So that's part of what went into trying to refine our analysis of the traffic impacts, was we looked at raw data, which is really not going to be carpooling. It's people going to see big soccer fields, and that's not what this is. And in addition, it's a state highway, so it's unlikely that it would be overwhelming any system. But that was a good question. No, there's no overnight. They'll go into maybe the evening hours during the summer, because you don't want the kids playing in the middle of the day when it's at the highest heat. You'd rather have them play a little bit in the evening when it's cooler, but that's about it.
And from what I heard, the existing fencing or netting that was made to keep the golf balls from going into Guam is gonna stay as far as the soccer balls from
Yep.
flying into the woods.
Yep.
So
Sorry.
if there's anything that's gonna be changed in regards to that, it would have to be
Correct.
resubmitted if they're coming close.
But actually, they actually want the fencing up because it'll prevent the same thing.
Sure,
Maybe not
yeah.
going to Guam, but the soccer
My
balls from
distance,
going
rather.
outside. No, I was thinking that's a pretty powerful golfer if he can hit a ball all the way to Guam from here. But yeah, and that part of our analysis also last time was looking at potential impacts to migratory birds from the fencing, if you can believe that.
Yep.
Well, sure, turtles and all kinds of birds, and sure, there's
Yep.
always something.
We try to do a thorough review every time we're up here. So in this case, again, the special use permit is required for commercial recreation. And while they're changing the nature of the recreation, being from golf to soccer, it's not really that big a change. Really what they're here for is approval, as was noted tonight. They have to do regrading because the site was graded deliberately so that the water would flow into that stormwater area. So they're gonna have to do some grading because that would not be safe. It really wouldn't be probably the best for kids to try to play on a slightly tilted field. It's not a lot of regrading, but it's just enough that it involves an analysis of stormwater. In addition, there's also, I should add to you, there's a 100-year floodplain area that's, let's see, thank you. That's why I don't have to do it.
Laser tag.
It's through here.
Yep. And we're making sure that all that's avoided. There'll be some regrading within the floodplain, but that's minor. It will shift the nature of the boundary, that's about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noticed there's a large rock outcropping. Is that going to be any kind of blasting there, or is that going to stay?
We'll stay.
Okay, we'll work around it.
Well,
The-
for now, I think
For now, I was going to say, it depends on what the future is, but again, all these things will be evaluated. You'd have to come back in for approvals, basically.
Understood. All right. Thank you for your time.
By the way, welcome to Hyde Park. We're happy to have new residents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The next person who signed up is Mr. Green, John Green at 2 Idlewild. Welcome back, Mr. Green.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's John. Mr. Green was my father. It sounds like a great idea that these gentlemen want to do. It's great for the kids. But I've been facing this land since 2006, Mr. Chairman, and you've been here 2009, 2012, and here it is 2018, and we're still chasing it. And even if they do, I mean, I would suspect they would get in, we'll be chasing it further on based upon what they may want to addend. But I think I heard you back there when you said the airsoft is off the table.
Yes.
X.
Yes, the approval actually lapsed within a year because they didn't get it started.
Right.
And they didn't request extensions. And also, we just wanted that in there to make it clear for anybody in the public that this is not
Thank you.
part of the approval.
Now, I found out about this by watching your famous Channel 22 that repeats the planning board's meetings, the educational meetings, and board meetings. So I just happened to be surfing the channels, and I seen you people talking about something, and it was this. So I paid attention. I didn't see the whole thing.
Mhm.
So I went back to look at it, and it ain't been on since. I got the beautiful colors. Rainbow. Okay?
So,
I did come
Oh.
in.
Okay.
there was something
Oh, there
wrong?
was an issue?
I think a power outage
Right.
knocked the backup battery.
But I'm sorry, I'm not used to
John.
saying John. Okay. John, if you go to the town's website and then click on government and then hit the planning board tab, you can see all of our meetings. You can watch it on your computer or however you watch YouTube.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting. Some people watch it other ways. But you can watch all of our meetings on YouTube too.
I did stop in to ask the question about the airsoft. There was a little contention a little bit, and they said, when you come to the meeting, ask the attorney, but I don't have to ask the attorney nothing. I got all my X's here, and I'm
Okay.
fine with that. The other concern I have is the water. I'll tell you a little story. My aunt, God bless her soul, 87 years old she was at the time, died at 97. She owned a little house in Orange Lake, across the river. And there was a development that came in, probably a mile away. And there were 5 houses in the little lake, Lakeside Road. And they drilled wells. And those 5 houses dried up. And I'll tell you what they told the 5 people. The person that owns the water in the ground is God. There's nothing. She had to go and drill another well, twice as deep. Now, I know you were looking at the water relative to something that was in here, but my concern is the aquifer. I don't know what's under that ground. You don't know what's under that ground. And I don't know, when you say irrigation, it isn't like you're getting a drink of water. It's something that's water is going periodically, depending on the weather. What happens if we have a drought emergency? I heard him say a holding tank. By the way, you ought to get with the fire department, because that holding tank could be used nicely. But anyway, for your own property. But anyway, what happens during a drought? And then what happens? I probably know every one of those neighbors. We got a nice new asset, as you met here, George, moved into the neighborhood. Most of those people are in their mid-80s and above. Everybody knows Mr. Niall Crispell, okay? Though they'd probably all be here tonight if they didn't have one ailment or another, Alzheimer's, okay? You name it. What happens if our wells do go dry? Is somebody gonna say, hey, we're gonna run a Hyde Park line to you? What happens?
Well, John, one of the things that they're gonna, provide is, and I believe you guys already said you already have it, is a map that shows the approximate distances to wells. So, well, not the wells, but to at least the property lines. So, what we're gonna check it against is, and the only thing that we can check it against is whatever the state or county health department regulations are for offset distances from if there was a public water supply well there that was gonna supply a development. They've got certain distances that you have to maintain.
Yeah, but nobody knows what the aquifer in the ground looks like.
No, but I mean,
I'm down 274 feet with my well.
Right.
274 feet. Now.
I mean, but this isn't,
Well, we're gonna look at the number of gallons that irrigation requires and compare it to a single-family home.
All right.
So we'll have that data.
Let me tell you why I'm very hesitant, because I was here when we originally talked about the airsoft, and I felt like I was talking to that receptacle right there, because it happened anyway. And I had MSDS sheets on the plastic, okay, it was supposed to be biodegradable. I was a state fire instructor and an OSHA instructor. How long has that thing got to sit on the ground? But it's water over the dam, that's gone, I don't want to waste your time. But all I'm saying is I don't want a ditto with the water.
Oh, no, we're going to take this.
Yeah,
here.
we're gonna
We'll
look
look
at
at
it,
this.
Okay.
I mean, my first instinct to say is that, depending on the actual location of the well, I mean, this area is laced with wetlands. I can't imagine, I'm not a hydrogeologist,
No,
but we do know them. But we do know them. Someone would know what the aquifer looks like underneath there. The county preeminent one actually lives here in Hyde Park. His name is Russell Urban Mead. He works for Chazen, and he's worked for us before.
And
We've
I
had
think
concerns like
everybody's
that.
willing to work with everybody, but
Well, believe
care
me,
about the residents.
while we want to welcome business, we also don't want it. We want to protect our current residents as well.
By the way, your, the other things in the wetlands too, your little playground there too. So the wetlands, 100-year floodplain goes up. Oh, the other thing, the two 20,000 square foot buildings.
Mhm.
Are they gonna do anything with them? Or they
Not at
gotta
the
come
time.
back?
Not at this time. They have to come back.
they gotta come back.
That was approved. So what happened was
It was
originally.
a concept, really.
Yeah, originally,
All right.
the Mr. Morrison and Mr. Casamento represented the original owner who had, I believe, I shouldn't say a contract, but a verbal deal with a gentleman who had tumbling and gymnastics. And so he wanted to come over here to do that as part of the, so we approved it for that. And that's why they were so tall, et cetera. That's why they're so big. That never happened either.
I know. September 2012, I think I told you, he wasn't going to make it.
And he didn't.
Thank you. Thanks an awful lot.
Thank you. Nice to
Thank
see you,
for
Mr.
coming
Lee.
out.
I wish you guys luck.
Would anyone else like to speak about this application? Just come on up and just please state your name for the record into the microphone, and your address too, if you can.
My name is John Egan. I'm also a Idlewild Drive resident. Just had a couple of pins. Quick question. It sounds like the regrading, I mean, it'll be graded away from Idlewild Drive, I hope. However they do
There's
it.
not going to be any increase in stormwater runoff onto your properties, I promise
Because
you.
the drainage over there is awful. And it's, whatever.
Yeah, believe me, what the original application did improve things, but it's a tough area because of where it sits, the whole drive.
I didn't see any problem with the driving range thing, but I was just wondering, in these proposals, if I come with a proposal for something, do you look at business plans at all? To look ahead to market demand? You have to make some assessment because they're saying so many people, so much traffic, so much this
So
activity.
on a project like this, of this size, the answer would be no. If they're looking at really large projects, for example, the 339-acre parcel across from the Culinary Institute, that was a lot of development that was proposed and given conceptual approval, and we asked for market data to show whether this would be supported or not. And so for large projects where there'd be big impacts potentially of having empty buildings just sitting there, we look at it. But for something like this, no, the economics of it for something this small wouldn't be something that we could factor legally into our decision making.
Okay, it's fine.
It's a good question, though.
I just wondered, because you follow the money, like, projects start out, and then they want a variance for, like, lights, a dome. Domes are eyesores, but if you look at the different facilities around, they contract out to schools and like that, they have indoor.
All of that would require
and
foreknowledge and a site plan amendment. I mean,
of course, domes would have to be like 50 feet high or something like. But
well, they'd have to get a variance from whatever our maximum. I believe our maximum height's 45 feet. I could be wrong. Yeah, it's because there are different height standards within each district, and this district is Greenbelt.
yeah, and part of the market demand. I was just wondering because they have soccer fields. They have very good ones. I see over by the Fire Training Academy. On Creek Road, and they have a small one in East Dorsey. They have Haviland Middle School. They play. That's right behind my house, Haviland, and they play over there. I was just wondering. It looks like they want. So there's a lot of young people playing. I was just wondering if they're, it's a rosy picture, if they're gonna like start playing off the. Behind my house. Maybe they want training or learn how to play more. I don't know, something like that.
The only area they can play in would be the area that we approve.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. You know, that's why I guess I was just looking at the market demand for it. What you said isn't a part of this.
Well,
right now,
it's
right?
also the fields that you're referring to. I believe are all used by the public schools.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
this is actually something
a
different.
Specialized training.
Yeah, this is going to be more special. I mean, Mr. Alvarez was being modest. He was imported to Spain when he was very young and made a lot of money. So he's come back with his expertise to use here, and that's why when Ms. Dexter was saying, how do people find you? He's got a good, from what I understand, a very good reputation, word of mouth on him, because he played professionally over in a place where they worship soccer or football.
Yeah, it sounded really great. Looks like you could draw in people from other.
Yeah, and we're
Not just
hoping,
local.
I have to be honest, we're hoping, all of us who sit up here, that this is the kind of business that when parents bring their kids over, that if they want to stop by the pizza place or the McDonald's or whatever, that they'll be patronizing other Hyde Park businesses and kind of letting all the tide rising with all boats, so to speak.
Okay. I've been here before and spoke, so I always end on other thing. If this doesn't work, You know what's hot today? Food, farm markets, healthy food, farm markets, breweries, and, you know.
There you go.
Believe me, if we have a sake
Just
brewery company, but I can tell you, if we had sewer, you'd see a lot more of those uses around. And because high water use is it's tough in a town like this where we're mostly rock and
Right.
everybody is on individual septic.
Right.
The town board is moving closer than ever toward getting a sewer, but it would not be for 9G. The expense, just for one here on 9, one plan is from Market Street to the drive-in, and that's $17 million.
Yep.
So it's
Thank you.
expensive, but that's what we need to have the kind of uses you're talking about, which I think everybody up here would welcome.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you for coming out, sir.
Thank you, yep.
Thanks. Would anyone else like to speak about this application? There being none, there's not much that you've heard tonight. We're going to take a look at coming back up. Or you don't have to come back up, you can stay seated there. So what we'll do is we'll wait to receive the revised plans and then review them and get back to you. We'll adjourn this for the next meeting on the 15th. And then we can, I hope, consider approval based on whatever the revisions are. And I think the comments we heard tonight, we also have to look at any potential drawdown on neighboring wells. As Victoria pointed out, we can look at the number of gallons that might be used for irrigation. This isn't it's not that huge an area. I mean,
No.
I have 3 acres that I have my irrigation on, but I'm on rock, so water just flows out quickly. As I recall, the depth to bedrock in some areas here is pretty low, so you're going to have some retention of water too, I believe.
There's a lot of water under there.
Yeah.
We just know from, I guess, being
Oh, we've
engineers and
trained
being
well.
here
Thank
forever,
you.
there's, the irrigation well isn't gonna be deep, and we're gonna limit our withdrawal by putting in an appropriately sized pump, honestly.
course.
Yeah, we're not gonna test for the yield. We're gonna look for 5-10 gallons a minute, typical house load, and figure out what he needs for irrigation. So, we're so far into the middle of our property, you know, we're 3 times the distance to the property line than a public water supply would put as a protective ring around it. So, I mean, it depends on how far you want us to go with neighboring wells, but.
No, it's the only time that we've used Mr. Urban Mead was was on Molly's Way.
Yep.
Up at the top of
Known issues.
Molly's Way, and
Yeah.
there were known issues. But as it turned out,
Right.
people wanted to do the subdivision. Their water was actually being drawn off Beck Road, I believe it was, to the rear. It wasn't affecting all the other people on Molly's Way.
Yeah.
So we had to have someone do that, but that was very intensive. I mean, these houses were really close to one another, and one more well, people were afraid that it was just going to kill their water.
Sure. Yeah.
In this case, as I said, if someone proposed a residential subdivision of, say, 25 houses, you'd have potentially much bigger impacts. than
Yeah, I
what you're gonna
believe
have from this.
that's the numbers, like 22 to
Right.
25.
It was 20
So if
something,
you
that's
have
all I can
20,
remember.
if you propose 22 homes, which is allowed under the code, then you would need 5 test wells. So you'd be out on that property, you'd drill 5 wells in advance, you'd do a 72-hour pump test, you'd
Right.
find out the yield throughout the area. And at the end of the day, if people were getting, one way or another, 5 gallons a minute, you would have 25 potential wells there that's allowed by right. So again, we're talking about one well that we use as irrigation, which is secondary to public use of water. So if there is some severe drought, we'd have to manage that condition too.
Right.
So,
Any chance you think you'll be able to put in like a point well or gravel well with the soils? You said there's a high water table.
I think we can consider, I don't.
So I mean, that wouldn't even
He's the
affect the
well guy,
residential
but I don't
water
think-
supply, because they're
I
all gonna be
think
Chris,
below
wait,
that.
Chris, can you explain what those terms mean for the rest of the board?
Well, if you were able to get a gravel or point well in,
What are they?
it would be you're collecting groundwater from gravels and soils above the bedrock. So you're not drilling, you're doing a shallow well, where a residential well to pass DOH approval has to be down into bedrock, so you wouldn't even be affecting those.
Yeah, we wouldn't drill to those standards. You know,
Exactly.
A
Yep.
residential standard, yeah.
May I just say for the record, I love our board. The amount of knowledge each person brings astonishes me sometimes. I've never heard those terms, that's why I asked for it before. I saw Rodney nodding, so interesting to know. So there are
I don't
different
know
wells.
what the soils are like, but that might be, because you'd probably have a high yielding well if you could do it, so.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there. again, from being here for so long, so.
Yes.
I think it would be helpful if you give us a comparison of this averaged over a year to a single-family home averaged over a year, just so
Sure.
people can understand, that
Well,
what
you're
range
also,
we're within.
they're not going
Sure.
to be in operation a portion of the year each year anyway, so it's going to have to be less. no matter
Right, well,
what.
that'll bring the average.
Yes, so,
But the alternative that Victoria's suggesting is, I'm fine doing the math, it's going to be 10, 20-fold, 30-fold what we're proposing to do.
Right.
Yep.
And just another point for the board to be aware of is if you had 20 homes in there, and even if you just use a small number, like 1/10 of an acre of impervious for each,
Oh, right.
roof, driveway, et cetera, and the roadway leading to the home, then you'd have some stormwater issues. So
because you're going to have much more impervious.
This
Yeah,
use is
absolutely.
a nice open space use of this land, so.
Thank you, that's a good point to make. Any other comments from the board? Making a motion to adjourn this to August 15th?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, and we'll look forward to looking
Thank
at
you,
the
everybody.
revised plans, and thanks for a nice presentation. And Patrick, always good to see you again. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Salt Point Solar. For anyone new to the audience, the applicants have been seeking site plan and special use permit approval under a law that was established specifically for this kind of application. The physical address is 525 Salt Point Turnpike. It's actually at more or less the corner of where East Dorsey and Salt Point Turnpike and Cream Street are all meeting. The applicants have been very forthcoming in terms of replying to our requests for additional landscaping, which was one of the only public comments we've heard so far were issues about potential impacts to the view sheds from Peach Hill Park. In the latest plans we've received, we have landscaping added, even more than what I thought that I even requested. But before let's go ahead and first open the public hearing. May I get a motion to do so?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, just to sort of update everybody, and by the way, the highway superintendent, Mr. Fisher, is here tonight. Welcome. Good to see you here at a meeting. Excited to have you. They're going to be changing or slightly relocating the entry and exit up into the site. So there was a flurry of emails since Thursday. In essence, we were missing some information when we did our neg deck.
Oh.
As it turns out, the applicants, in an abundance of caution, have been dealing directly with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Ms. Polidor and I had about an hour conversation today with Jennifer and Skylar, two of their environmental managers.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, as I said before, if you look at the U.S. FWS mapping, it doesn't really get into the details of the sites. It just shows all of Dutchess County as having suitable habitat for bog turtles, Indiana bats, and northern long-eared bats, et cetera, which we all up here know. We looked at the DEC environmental mapper, and it showed no hits for any species specifically nearby. If you recall, they did an initial habitat assessment, and their consultant concluded that there was marginal habitat near two wetlands, but because he wasn't investigating sites adjacent to it, he couldn't comment that it might be one of the areas where they wander. So the applicants have proposed silt fencing where the security fence will be. That shows SF. But in addition to that, they also, when we were doing the neg deck, because some of that I wrote for the endangered, threatened, and rare species, we assumed they were going to be following regular guidelines from DEC, et cetera. They wouldn't be removing trees during the wintertime periods, and not wintertime periods, from March through October. So what's happened is that they did, if you recall when we were doing the hotel project, when I went to the DEC, I discovered that there is a way to do it. You do an acoustic survey. As it turns out, they did the acoustic survey with Copperhead, I believe it is. So they asked us in the interim to revise the neg deck. That way, if USFWS agrees that the survey was done correctly and that there are no potential habitat for either one of the endangered bats, then they could proceed with removing trees whenever they needed to keep under their construction schedule. However, in talking to the environmental, their managers, what happens is that they did the study, they followed, they think, what U.S. Fish and Wildlife wanted them to do. We don't have a sign-off from Fish and Wildlife. If this were done through the DEC, in other words, we would receive something from the DEC
Right.
saying, we concur with the study, it's all fine, it's all good. In speaking to the two ladies, it appears as though U.S. Fish and Wildlife could have up to 30 days to respond. So I'm waiting for an email in the morning because they were going to speak to Mr. McElwain, who I gather is even higher up on the totem pole. But maybe not, okay. But to make sure that we get authorization, because we have hired AKRF in the past, as you know, as a
Right.
consultant, whenever we didn't have something that one of our consultants could do. I'm going to contact AKRF in the morning, ask them if they can do this review, see how quickly they can do it, and then get an estimate for what the cost for whatever their peer specialist would be looking at. And if we can get him or her to then weigh in and say, I've read it, it's fine, then we can amend the neg deck. Once we amend the neg deck, then we can take the next step and approve the site plan, if everybody's willing to approve it. So after the agenda meeting, we'd instructed Victoria to start the draft for the resolution, but then when we got this new information that there were things going on that we didn't know about, and to adjust the neg deck, as I explained, we just have to have somebody else say, because none of us are environmental specialists, say, yes, it was done properly. And when I read the study, which was not easy because there's a lot of blacked out information, or it appears to be blacked out, there was discussion about maybe some microphones not working, but then there was a firmware that was, whatever firmware is, that was faulty. So we need someone who reads these often enough to say, yes, we conclude it's fine. And I think we can find a way to do that. We were trying to help them expedite it because we know they're already a little behind in their construction or their schedule. More importantly, they still have to get the decommissioning plan reviewed and accepted by the town board. As you know, we have a letter going out to the, or it's already been authorized to the town, it's already gone to the town board, recommending it. But they're not going to be able to meet with Supervisor Rohr, I think, until August 28th.
28th.
Is the first date. So if we can get everything through on our side first, then it just helps them speed that along. Did I say all that correctly, I hope? I was trying to summarize it quickly.
Yeah, thank you for the summary, Chairman Cree. Appreciate that. And first of all, for the board, again, this is Brian Stump, zoning manager for Cypress Creek Renewables, and with me tonight is Michael Sheridan from the Snyder & Snyder Law Firm, just for assistance.
And I believe you and Ms. Polidoro spoke earlier in the week?
No, I spoke to Mr. Ward.
Oh.
Who is this?
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
And behind me are miscellaneous project developers. They flew across the country because they heard how enjoyable the Hyde Park Planning Board is. So they're here from California.
We hope to make it so, but we don't have refreshments. I'm sorry, we can't serve those. So do you want to highlight any of the changes that you made? I think the board's all familiar with it because we've all been scrutinizing it, but.
Yeah, I think we've been slowly reducing the number of remaining items, and we believe this could be potentially a penultimate meeting until the August 15th
so.
meeting. Thank you.
I hope so.
But I could highlight.
Microphone, you can take the walk-around microphone with you. Still training.
No, the.
Walk
there you
around.
go, yep.
It should just be turning it on at the bottom.
Push and hold the bottom and, or button on the bottom.
Okay. Hold it.
Hold it.
Yeah, it's just a, and the light should go on. Right, the light goes on?
There you go.
There you go.
Testing.
There
Okay.
you go.
Behold, our updated landscaping plan, and responding to Chairman, or the whole planning.
Huh? Oh.
There it is.
There it is.
Responding to the planning board, we have installed on this southeastern corner. As you know, there is a view from the Peach Hill Park location, and we've actually been able to find a space for Pinus strobus, aka Eastern White Pine. And as you can see, as were recommended by the board at the last meeting, we were able to find space within the already forested area. It's a sparse enough forest that we can actually reinforce it with upwards of 10-foot pine trees. And I'll just open up to questions at this point.
Then let me go over to my left to the consultants. Ms. Eccleston, any new comments?
Yeah, I mean, one is a question, and my understanding is to some degree, if you're pursuing nice sort of funding for a solar array like this, that some of these sign-offs are very essential in terms of obtaining that funding, so it all kind of works together. There has been a lot of email dialogue back and forth, and on July 27th, I tried to send out a summary of everything that I believed was outstanding. I don't know if the entire board got it, but it had to do with the Norway spruce trees being added back, which looks like that's been done. And then we had some questions, Pete and I, about the stormwater maintenance easements and different configuration for gating at the southern end of that central gravel road and easements running there from. I won't go into too much detail. And then there was another comment about general landscaping notes about mowing that was very specific about mowing no more than twice per year in the summer and the fall. So I'm assuming those are all going to be addressed along with, you know, whatever comments remain in our most recent review memo.
Yeah, I spoke with the engineers before the meeting, and they said they would have a revised, or they would have comments for you.
Great.
Soon, very soon.
Okay, great.
Responses. Thank you. Mr. Sotero? No. Ms. Polidoro?
So, we're not just looking for responses, we actually need a revised plan.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that you sent this around, but the town doesn't actually have a copy of this because you didn't give us a hard copy. So just don't forget to copy the town with hard copies so people can come in, they can take a look at it, and when it's approved, we have the most recent plan set.
This wasn't submitted? This
Not a hard
landscape
copy.
plan? Oh, okay, a hard copy. You want this one?
You might.
You're welcome to have it. So.
Yes.
Okay, all right, it's yours.
I do want it.
It's fine work, by the way.
One of the other things that we were looking for were more details on what you're going to be installing at Peach Hill Park, because that was part of your seeker mitigation.
Yeah, I brought this up at previous meetings, I again invited people, friends of Peach Hill Park, to attend tonight. But we have an email correspondence that I could forward to the board that acknowledges that we are in agreement that there will be the educational sign next to the Catskill Overlook sign on the
So we're actually looking for, what's the sign going to look like and when is it going to be installed?
You had it last time. You showed more or less
a
visualization of the
assessment.
same sign. You
Yeah.
just had something different imposed on top of it. That's what you're really looking for,
Yeah, you showed
right?
the pictures
and the note
and
about
the
when
bench.
it will be installed,
And-
prior to issuance
So
of
more details
CO
like that.
for the solar facility.
Yeah, I think that's what we want to do, is have a note added that prior to issuance of any CO, that it'll be installed and properly located, something like that. That way it doesn't hold you up on your building permit or anything else.
Perfect. Yeah, and also along with that signpost is the park bench.
Bench, yeah, so
Yeah.
the sign and the
Right.
bench.
And also the pollinator meadow next to the apple orchard. Is there anything that you would like further details about those two items?
I don't think we need to see the bench, because they are probably going to tell you what bench to order, because they're all the same. They have a new version versus an old version.
I would just include the note, these things
Per Peach
shall be
Hill Park.
installed prior to issuance of the CO.
Okay.
Anything else over there? Mr. Napoli, any additional comments?
Just a question about the trees. You were saying the white pines. Are all the trees just the same one type of white pines? There's no mixture?
In that one area, because...
Oh, just in that
yeah.
one area,
So
okay.
white pines grow quickly, but they tend to lose their lower branches. In this case, we're trying to protect the view
perfect.
down, so it's actually ideal, because as the lower limbs drop, you'll actually have other successional hardwoods or softwoods come up. In the meantime, it'll protect the view from up top, and they reach a maximum height, so that there won't be any occlusion toward the more important thing, which is the panels themselves.
Thank you.
But there is, they put back in spruces where there's more of a, I can look at eye level to see this. So it's just that one area where that's just white pines.
That's it.
Mr. Oliver?
No comment, thank you.
Ms. Dexter?
I just wanted to ask the question, you had brought up, Ms. Axelson had mentioned something about mowing twice a year, but you're proposing a landscaped area of pollinator plants, and I don't believe we want them to mow those.
They have to be.
Or are we talking, what are we talking about?
This came up at the agenda meeting, and I thought the idea was that it was to be mowed no more than twice a year. so that there would be
So you-
maximum growth.
Excuse my ignorance, you are supposed to mow a pollinating,
Well, to
flower-ridden,
the extent that they're under the panels, they will grow too high, but are you putting pollinators under the panels?
Now, you're referring to not the pollinators on Peach Hill Park, but
no, on your site, on your site.
Yeah, it's coming for our project to have the pollinators, and there's actually a plan. First year, there's just basic maintenance, a little bit of mowing the first year, but the subsequent years, it's no mowing is necessary, and it's just kind of more of a pest maintenance that we. So it's actually a 4-year plan. After 4 years, that's it. That's all the maintenance that is required, and that's something the Peach Hill Park Friends of Peach Hill Park were very appreciative of that particular.
Is that all in your plan notation? The
Are you talking about maintenance of Peach Hill Park or
No.
maintenance of?
No, we're talking about the site here.
the site,
The site.
yes.
Yeah,
And
the site. That's what.
Over time, you're not supposed to have to worry about mowing.
Right, it's
However, I
wildflower.
was just going to say, however, in this area, we have a lot of invasives.
Oh, yeah.
Probably up where you are too, but
Yep.
the chief ones are Oriental bittersweet. I should have added the first one is ailanthus. Some people call it sumac, but that's not the right name. Tree of life, it's the tree that grows in Brooklyn because it can grow in a thimble of soil. Well, it's up here everywhere growing in thimbles of soil. And so you may have to do some maintenance periodically just because it's spread through by birds, that sort of thing. So there's also poison ivy, I can go on, but you may need to occasionally do. We have heavy maple growth periodically up here. So I know you don't want to have trees in through the middle of it. That's why we were saying no more than twice a year.
There will still be checkups every once in a while. I mean, not by maintenance, but just by someone from the company, typically every 3 months, and to check on things like that. And we do use non-toxic herbicides in the case of invasive species.
Great.
Okay, so I just want to make sure because, again, my understanding of a pollinator meadow is that it starts growing in the spring and it dies back in the fall and in the winter and you're done. You're not mowing it. You're not doing any of that. And the town just passed that new law, so I want to make sure that they don't get caught in this thing where the town's going to demand that they mow a beautifully pollinator meadow.
Well, I mean, this is a site plan feature, so arguably this isn't someone's lawn.
But we just had this discussion with the Sake Brewery also, and I just want to be really clear here.
Ms. Moss has not opined fully yet. It's still in her head, but I believe she's going to opine that if it's part of a site plan feature, then it's not, the laws does not apply to it.
Okay.
The Sake Brewery issue was between the wall and the street, where it sort of is a lawn.
Yeah, because it is.
But if they
Yeah.
wanted to make it a pollinator meadow, they could, if they wanted to.
They'd
As
have to
long
get-
as it's
they'd have
on
to
site
get a-
plan and
They'd have to get
it's.
approval from us.
Right.
The landscaping plan is very detailed, has
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of very, very detailed notes. And there is a note about wildflowers and grasses allowed to grow, I'm paraphrasing, to their naturally occurring height whenever possible. Native wildflowers and/or grasses can be mowed/maintained within acceptable areas identified and/or approved by appropriate regulatory agencies as often as needed to keep the vegetation at a desired and/or manageable manicured height.
And that's where we're asking them to do it.
No more than two.
2 times a
See.
year, because as
Okay.
often as needed, it's different to different people.
Gotcha. It just sounded very confusing that we would even be talking about making them mow it twice a year.
Well, it's no more than
Yeah,
2
no more
times a
than.
year, because
But if they don't ever, mow it, that's okay too, right?
Sure.
Gotcha.
But they're gonna have an interest in keeping it below the panel, so it doesn't block.
Right, but they've already chosen, their whole design is based on that. They're not,
What the plants that have been chosen or selected should be growing up to a maximum height where it doesn't, again, try to occlude any
right.
the sunshine that needs to.
Would it
to
make
keep the
more
panels.
sense just to modify the note to say applicant does not need to maintain, but if needed, not more than 2 times a year?
Right, I think.
That way,
that's
that
the
way it
intent.
fixes the
If
issue.
mowed.
But you do
takes
have
the
to maintain
confusion
it. They'll be going through to maintain periodically because of invasives. So.
I mean
maintain
specifically
means not
mow. I think
Right, yeah.
specifically does not need
As
to
I
be
recall,
mowed.
from what I recall, each of your years, there's less and less maintenance each year.
Yeah. Yeah, there, yeah.
'Cause it's got to be established in the first place.
Yeah, there's the mowing of the first year, and then, as I said, the pesticide maintenance for the next remaining 3 years. But after 4 years, it basically takes care of itself. But yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to cover.
Thank you. I was just quite confused, but now I feel much more.
I was going to ask, is this a rewording, an update of the wording on the landscape plan?
Yes.
Okay.
And this, what I had said in the email is add to the general landscape notes on Plan Sheet L100 that mowing shall occur no more than twice per year in the summer and fall, which I believe is what
That would be the
the
revision.
board wanted.
It's already been supplied.
All right, I'll try to make sure that.
You may not have been on that email now that I think about it. I can't tell if you're always, I don't know if you're always on the.
I don't think.
I emailed everybody in creation. I can't believe Brian wouldn't be on here, but maybe not.
I
get
don't
lost
think
in
you
the
were on the
cracks
ones with the
sometimes.
environmental managers.
No, it
I
was
wasn't on that
Daniel
call.
LaRose, David Whiteman, Skylar Cornell. I guess you weren't on there. I
Yeah,
cannot
that's one of
believe
the
it.
problems.
Sorry. Do
This-
you want me to forward it to you?
Please, yeah.
I didn't mean to leave
But
you
this is David
out.
Waitman back here, by the way.
It was just.
Let me make
No.
certain I say what I said today to the environmental managers.
I'll
We love
forward
working
that
with
to
you
you.
as
I
a
had no
company.
idea you didn't have it, Brian.
Thank you.
As I've said, we have to sometimes wrestle with applicants to do as far environmental mitigation as what you're proposing. It's beyond what we would have probably suggested.
My apologies. I had no idea.
But there's been a lack of communication between the environmental managers and the people who are proposing the application before the board. That's why we probably didn't get the information that we could have used to perfect the neg deck even more. But we're going to take care of that. We've got the information, now we just need to get it reviewed. Any other comments?
No.
Mr. Pickett?
Question, has the access to the point been changed since the initial fire department nod?
No, they saw the fire department saw the updated
Okay,
access
all right.
roads. I just had that meeting, what was it, less than a month ago.
Okay,
And we got the
great.
letter back from them immediately.
Yes.
Okay, so, Ms. Weiser?
No additional questions?
Would anyone from the public like to speak? Superintendent Fisher? You sure you want to come and say something? Okay. Well, again, we appreciate you being here and taking an interest in what we do. So, there really weren't any substantial can we get him a copy of the email? Did you just, Liz, can you get him a copy of that email?
I'm just going to give him this.
Yeah. We often assume that.
This was originally from Tom McElwain. I'm speaking into the mic, sorry. And so I just assumed,
I know.
and never assume because you make a, you know what I mean.
We are assuming that this is always being forwarded to your entire team, but since the team changes every time we're here, that may not be how it operates.
It's always me.
Team
Yes, the
changes,
celebrity's
email
always here, but the rest of your minions, your minions. So we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of everything. So we're going to do what we need to do on our side, and you will get us, I hope, some revised plans, or rather, we have a set. We will have to add this to the plan sheet now. But you'll have a list of what Liz suggested for revisions, and then I'll get working on what we need to do on our side to make sure we have peer review and can get this done, I hope, by the next
Right,
meeting.
and just so everyone's clear, if once they get the scope of work, if the applicant decides they'd rather wait the 30 days for Fish and Wildlife.
They can.
They can.
I mean, I presented it as two options. If you want to say something, just make sure you have the microphone.
I just want to say that I think that sounds good. I just want to make sure that a resolution will be prepared for the next meeting, assuming everything goes well.
We started, but when we don't get information that we need to have in the first place in order to change a neg deck.
Understood.
And there's
Understood,
no
but
reason to
I-
make the resolution because I've got to change the neg deck first.
Right, and I believe, as you summarized at the beginning of the meeting, which I believe you covered everything, going to DEC, which is looking like something that's going to be happening.
So I'm going to start with the DEC
Right,
because
if that-
I've been working with them for so long to see if they would just kind of do it as a free review.
Right.
If they say no, then I'm going to go to AKRF because they're a large firm that I believe has a division that handles environmental reviews like this. I'll contact them. The next thing I would do would then say who would do this, and then I'll contact that person and then say how much do you think it would take to review this. It's about a 44-page, I think, report, but there's a lot of, like I said, on my copy through my email, I have black pages. It says maps, and it's all black pages. There's nothing on it. And there's sometimes in the written narrative, it says this was requested by, and done at, and there'll be blacked out words like it's been redacted. Maybe that's just my version, but at any rate, ask that person how long it would take and how much it would cost, then get that emailed to Brian, so he can provide an escrow check. It has to be a separate escrow account, 'cause it's a separate company, and they each have their own escrow accounts here. Get that done, and I'd say, can you get it done within a week? And because it can't take that long to review these things.
Right, well, that's what I'm hoping. I'm just wondering if you have to direct to get the resolution prepared at this point, or can that be done in the meantime once we get something
We'll be
back?
getting the resolution prepared. As I said, Victoria already started, but I told her to stop because I didn't know I didn't know at the time when I told her to stop that you had even done these studies. He just mentioned it, and we're like, well, we need a copy of those because we can't change the neg deck based on you saying they did the studies and they're all fine. We have to review them too, because it's our neg deck.
I understand. I just want to make sure if everything comes back good
Yes.
for everybody, we can get this wrapped up.
You can speak to your environmental managers. They were very complimentary today, saying how
Yes.
helpful we were. So, because there's no reason for us not to expedite this. The only public comment we received was concerns about visual impacts. That's been taken care of, and Brian's done his charm offensive with the Friends of Peach Hill Park. So and believe me, I know them. I know some of the people involved outside of my role as a planning board. And the two leaders of the pack, I'll say, so to speak, are pretty influential people. And they told me straight out their concerns were allayed at the very beginning, just based on our responses, saying that we would take it seriously and asking them for something. So without any other public comment, I don't see any reason to drag this out. I'd rather make it go forward and get you going and get your construction schedule, something that you can adhere to now finally fully.
Thank you.
And remember, I did make suggestions about pushing someone with this decommissioning plan, but you didn't hear me say it. But
I did not
say
hear
it.
that.
Yes, thank
and
you.
Thank you for the compliment. I've been told I'm more offensive than charming, but I'll take that as a compliment. And the sooner I get the escrow,
I will do it.
We'll get the check
I have an
immediately.
8:15, and we have a 10 and 11 tomorrow, but I have a window of opportunity between noon and 2, and I'll make the phone calls right then to DEC, and if not, then to AKRF.
We'll be quick about that. And also, we encourage direct communication. Jennifer Sherwood and Skylar Cornell were the environmental managers that we talked to.
We spoke with them.
Yeah.
But that was our first time
I'm
to hear
just-
their names or meet them.
Okay.
So,
But-
e-meet them, I guess I should say.
Between now and August 15th, then you're welcome to have further direct
I
communication.
think we're all on the same page with them. That's why I needed to explain to the board what it was, and how we would need to have some sort of sign-off. So I said, if this was to the DEC, we'd get a letter from the DEC saying, we concur with the survey, they're good to go. That way, our zoning administrator would know that if she started seeing trees felled in the inappropriate, out of the established time frame, she would give you a cease and desist. And the way our neg deck is written, we wrote it saying they would not be taking down the trees during this time period. Since you intend to, we've got to reincorporate the language. We now have the studies. I just have to have someone who's an expert appear, as they say, to Copperhead to say, yes, we agree. And that could be U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but the person reviewing is off for a week, and then it hasn't been sent to them yet, so we send it, and then with them getting 30 days, you'd be looking, I think, September approval. So we'd rather assist you beforehand.
And just one, quick note, I know there's a certain amount of back and forth where your team is really trying to be very responsive, providing materials. And the thing is, ultimately, what is needed is a submittal so that Cynthia and everybody has everything responding to, I said in my email, as many comments as is possible. We had said in our most recent review memo that things could be addressed as conditions of approval, but I think the board, as a general rule, would prefer to have fewer conditions rather than
So
a
would
large
you.
number. Indeed.
I can tell you that straight out, so would you.
Right,
It makes it, if we give an approval with 20 conditions, it's going to take you a while to assemble a narrative that's going to show how you answer each condition, and then it takes them longer to review. If we can knock out conditions in advance, there's no delay that way, because you're getting something that you'd have to deal with anyway.
So
But-
assuming the environmental issue can be taken care of quickly, when would you suggest they submit their new map by so that it can be reviewed and a resolution can be prepared?
Ideally tomorrow, as soon as you can, submit.
Our agenda meeting is next Thursday, so it really needs to be
We
here
need it by
before
that
then.
Wednesday. We need it by the Wednesday morning. Yeah. Because we will refer to that. I mean, if we didn't have it, if you even got to us Wednesday, we can look at it at the agenda meeting. It just takes us longer during that time
We'll
period.
turn it around as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
It's just if it comes after Thursday, it's much harder to.
Because we don't get together again and have a dialogue about what all needs to go into the resolution. Yep. And we meet at 9:30, so may I have a motion to, 9:30 in the morning. Yeah, may I have a motion to adjourn this public hearing to August 15th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nice to meet you. Good to see you again. See you in 2 weeks. Now, oh, I forgot, that's why you're here. I completely forgot. It's about the open, you were concerned about the opening. Okay. We have a series of site plan waivers. We have recommendations by the zoning administrator. The first one would be for Highway Superintendent Howie Fisher at 4 Horseshoe Drive. I will point out that this is only for a front porch addition, and it is not visible from either one of the historic sites or the river, which give rise to the scenic area statewide significance. So who has this file?
I do.
Thank you, Ann.
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, Howard and Kathleen Fisher, 4 Horseshoe Drive, site plan waiver. Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, August 1st, 2018, resolution number 2018-44. Whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Howard and Kathleen Fisher for a front porch addition associated with a single-family home requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore it be resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department July 2nd, 2018, and per the request to the Planning Board dated July 11th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
And we're very happy
Mr.
that you
Fisher.
don't have to sit on the ground.
The next item on the agenda will be Barella. This is located at 40 Old Post Road. Now, this is a recommendation from the zoning administrator. I will point out that this is visible, actually. I saw it from the Staatsburg State Historic Site, but all this is doing is repairing an existing porch. It's not changing or adding anything, nor is it giving any negative impacts to the state resource. Who has this file?
I do.
Thank you.
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, Christopher Barella. 40 Old Post Road, Staatsburg, site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, Resolution 18-46, whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Christopher Barella for a front porch repair associated with a single-family home requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives the site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department July 18, 2018, and per the request to the Planning Board dated July 19, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next item is Schiaffo Pear at 21 Cromwell Place. This is actually for a rear above-ground pool. It's in the Historic Overlay District, but it's also not visible from the historic sites or the river. So who has this file?
I do.
Thank you.
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, Karen Schiaffo Pare, 21 Cromwell Place, site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, resolution number 2018-47. Whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Karen Schiaffo Pare to install an above-ground pool associated with a single-family home, and whereas, therefore be it resolved, the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit and associated site plan waiver received by the Planning Department on July 23rd, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next is Aaron Smiley. It is Smiley?
Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, Aaron Smiley, 16 Scenic Drive, site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, August 1st, 2018, Resolution 2018-48. Whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Aaron Smile to install roof-mounted photovoltaic panels.
Photovoltaic.
Voltaic. It's a little bit of French. Panels on the existing single-family home, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the request for waiver of the site plan received by the planning department on July 24th, 2018.
Second.
So I should have added on this application.
I'm sorry.
No. This is actually somewhat visible from the river, but it doesn't change really what they're going to see. It's just going to see dark panels, which is why she made the request. So all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is Bellucci, Nicholas and Katrina, site plan waiver at 37 Mansion Drive, again for solar-mounted photovoltaic panels. Who has this file?
I do. Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, Nicholas Bellucci, 37 Mansion Drive, site plan waiver, Town Code, Section 108-9.4 C2, Resolution 2018-49. Whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Nicholas Bellucci for minor changes in the existing conditions requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives the site plan requirements for the proposed changes as submitted to the Planning Board on July 24th, 2018.
And I'll add, this is, go ahead.
Second.
This is also not visible from the river or the two historic sites. It is visible from
The old AMR
thank you. I couldn't think of what to call it. But the impacts would be minor because it's, again, just adding dark on a dark roof that exists. So all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is a resolution to declare Vanderbilt Gardens a stale and abandoned application, and Ms. Dexter is going to read this in.
Resolution declaring certain site plan and subdivision applications abandoned pursuant to local law J of the Town Code, August 1st, 2018, resolution number 18-G. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby deems the subdivision Vanderbilt Gardens abandoned, and any and all escrow accounts for it shall be closed, and all remaining balances returned to the appropriate project sponsor. In deeming the applications abandoned, it is the express intent that should the projects be revived in the future, new applications will be submitted, fees shall be paid, and new escrow accounts be established.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Am I going to motion, or is there any new or old business?
Nope.
Pete, do you want to say anything about your new firm?
Oh.
No, well, I sent out an email to everybody, and I assumed that everybody, had received it. So we made an agreement to sell Morris Associates to Clark Patterson and Lee, and I have a 3-year contract, and I hope to work, more after that. And we'll take a month of transition, and September 4th will be officially known as Clark Patterson and Lee, and now I have a boss.
Wow.
You mean Cynthia wasn't your boss?
Well,
Now you have two bosses.
I don't think my wife watches the meetings on YouTube, so I would say that no, she wouldn't be that Cynthia is not my boss, that my wife is my boss.
I do have a question for you, though.
Sure.
This is serious. Does Clark Patterson and Lee have something that have a division that would do like an environmental review, like of this bat acoustic survey?
I don't. I probably should know that, but I don't at the moment.
When Pete called me, I was a little surprised, but then I congratulated him and I said, "Look, there's an upside to this. It's a huge firm." Greg Bollner.
I mean, I know they do have traffic engineering.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I know that.
We'll be able to use something that's more
Yeah,
in-house.
there's a few things. Yeah.
Which I think is a good idea. So.
And again, as I had I remember if I put it in the email, but I mean nothing changes. The people don't change, the rates don't change, so. It's a name change, and that's where we are.
And more
so.
resources for
And
us.
more
That's
resources.
great.
And it's good for our employees. They have access to more things. There's opportunities for a lot of them like in the future, to move up easier. And so it's Sunday night before we talked to the employees, I called my partner Ray, and I said, well, like how do you feel? He said, like I'm sad. I said, well, yeah, so am I, but. It's the right thing.
It's
the right thing.
It's a successful. To me, it's a successful transition.
Now we have to go talk to Mrs. Morris tomorrow, and we're gonna break the news to her. But she'll be all right. So, but it's
Wow.
good. But thank you for
Congratulations.
You know, your
yeah.
support, so.
Yep, absolutely. So now may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for taping us.
and it's 7:25.
Look at us.
Yeah, I like that.
This is
You know, we
nice.
started at 6 for the first time tonight.